Okay, three, two, we're live.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome to the Texas Black Democrats TDP Chair Forum. My name is Frederick Nickens, and I am a member of the Texas Democratic Black Caucus. So, why do we do this tonight? We're doing this because we're going to elect the next chair. And what does that mean for the Texas Democratic Party? It means that will be the leader of our party who will guide us into 2026, into victory in 2026 and beyond. So we're taking this very seriously. And people ask, why did we go first? Why are we doing it now? Well, we simply wanted to be first. We wanted it in this week because why not? There'll be another forum and another forum and another forum and another forum where you could get more out of these candidates, but we wanted to get them first while we had a crop of people. We understand that there is a couple days before filing deadline begins, but we believe like this. If you were really serious about this job, you would have applied already. And if you wanted to be taken seriously, you would have applied already. And we applaud all these people here. First, we want to thank Mr. Ronald Gordon and his platform. So, Mr. Ron Gordon, please take it over and tell us about your platform.
Our platform is Texas in Color. It was a brainchild of Tammy Lambert saying that we need to get the information out there to the voters of what's going on out in the state of Texas. And there was really no means of getting the word out except for the local media that only covered for maybe 30 seconds at most like that, then it's forgot about. But we want to be here to remind everybody what's going on in Texas and how they can contribute and help and be informed at the same time.
Thank you. And please support Ron and his platform. It's a much needed and much wanted platform. So with that, we'll go over the rules for this forum. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, which will be moderated by Mr. Ronald Gordon and myself. We will tell them when the 2 minutes, because like technology, we had a time clock, but it failed on us right before we were doing sound checks. The chat is open. So if you have questions, the chat is being monitored by Ms. Sabrina Robertson, Tammy Lambert, and Justin Parker. And they will forward questions that they believe that are relevant or really, really good or the ones that need to be asked. So with that, we will start because you're not here to hear me talk or Mr. Ronald Gordon or anybody else. You're here to meet the candidates. So first, we have the candidates will be, and I'm going to announce all their names and then they will speak. Ms. Delia Parker Mims, Chair of Denton County. Mr. Kendall Scudder, the finance secretary for TDP. I think I got it right. We have Aaron Arrigo out of Bexar County, Rabbi Misha Ben David out of Austin, and Miss Patsy Woods Martin out of the DFW area. So the candidates will now have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Chair Parker Mims, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, sir. I feel like I'm in a beauty pageant. Good evening, my fellow Democrats. My name is Delia Parker Mims, and I've had the honor of serving as the chair of the Denton County Democratic Party. I call it the best county party in the state of Texas, and our numbers will prove it. Now, like many of you, I was devastated that Trump won the election. I was devastated that we lost Democratic votes, the disregard for women's health, the setbacks in the valley, and the erosion of our democracy. And, in times like these, we face a choice where we can either succumb to despair or we can stand up and fight. And for me, I'm running for the state Democratic Party chair because it's time to fight and it's time to lead and it's time in winning, because winning is the only solution. Now, during my tenure as chair of Denton County, we achieved remarkable success. Through our Fight Back Register 50 program, we were #1 in the state for increasing voter registrations. We've been #1 in the largest county in the state of Texas the last 2 election cycles in a row as I've been chair, increasing Democratic turnout. The largest county in the state to increase Democratic turnout. And it's time to bring that organizational structure to the state, and it's time for us to start winning. Again, I'm Delia Parker Mims, and I'm proud to be a Democrat, and I'm running for the state Democratic Party chair.
Thank you, Chair Parker Mims. Next, we will have Mr. Kendall Scudder. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, first, thank you, Frederick Nickens, for helping to put this together. Mr. Nickens represents part of the district that I represented when I was on the State Democratic Executive Committee, and it's really great to know that my folks are in such good hands with you. Thank you so much for all you do. And second, I want to thank all these candidates that have signed up to serve our party. Serving our party has just been a life's work of mine, and I love when I see Democrats who get out of bed in the morning and eat glass. So thank you guys for stepping up to the plate. My name is Kendall Scudder, and I grew up on a Purple Hole pea farm in East Texas. And when I was 12 years old, Republicans were trying to take kids with same-sex parents out of our homes and put us in foster care. So I started knocking on doors. And in the last 22 years, I've served on every level of our state party, from precinct chair all the way up to the finance chairman position that I hold today. I have a reputation for being somebody that treats everybody with respect and for being a workhorse. I'm not always a show horse. And I'm running for chair because it's time for the Democrats to not be afraid to roll up their sleeves and rethink the way that we're structured, rethink the way that we operate from the ground up, and not be afraid to do it. And because it's time for our party to be led by a working class person. This idea that our party can continue doing what we have always done and get some kind of different results is asinine to me. We got a strong message sent to us by the voters this election. It is important that we hear them and that we embrace a strong, progressive, populist message and make sure that our brand is synonymous with economic justice. And if it is not, then we have failed to do our job. I believe that I have shown folks whenever I was a nominee in one of the reddest districts in this state to when I was an elected official in one of the bluest, that I'm ready to do that work and to rebuild our party from the ground up. Thank y'all for having me today.
Well, thank you. Next, we will have Mr. Aaron Arillo. Did I say it right?
Aaron Arguillo, it's okay.
Arguillo, I'm sorry,
yes,
sir.
Sir. No worries. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Thank you, Nick, and the Texas Democratic Black Caucus for inviting me to meet and speak with you all this evening. I saw the list of the current candidates. I was kind of surprised at how small it was. I'd like to wish all the candidates well in this campaign run. I had been approached by several Democrats across Texas to run for this position. And truthfully, I figured someone like a Beto O'Rourke, maybe someone affluential in the Democratic Party of Texas would have sought this position. In the end, I decided to run because I know there's a lot I can do to help the candidates win and to shift the political dynamics in Texas. So my name is Aaron Arguillo. I grew up in a small town of Dimmitt, Texas, in the Northwest Texas Panhandle. I served 10 years in the military, and I currently reside here in San Antonio, Texas, where I own a small tax practice, and I've ventured out into coffee shops. My wife and 3 beautiful children have called this place home for the last 15 years. Most importantly, though, I am a concerned Texan, and I've been stepping up against what's happening in our state and in our country. One of the first efforts I launched was a campaign to run for the United States Senate in 2024. Recently, I've been traveling Texas to several rural areas looking at land and property both for sale and for rent. That will enable us to cultivate relationships and establish some sort of representation in these areas. Because if you don't already know, our representation is obsolete. We don't have any representation in various parts of Texas. I feel like this is going to make us a stronger party for future elections. I'm looking at this from a business perspective and expanding my business while at the same time growing the party. I'm committed to this and plan to make it a personal goal that I feel may become a lifelong effort for me. My first order of business as chair will be to travel Texas in a travel trailer. Okay, and park it in each county seat for a week at a time, and cultivate these relationships. I believe the Texas Democratic chair, his job should be to elect candidates from local governments all the way up and invest in the communities of Texas. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Next, we will have Rabbi Misha Ben David.
Thank you, Frederick. Can I call you Nick?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, if you don't mind. My name is Rabbi Misha Ben David. I've been in Texan for 40 years. I unlike a lot of you, I didn't grow up in Texas. I grew up a military child. Was born in England and grew up in Alabama and grew up in Alaska and grew up a little bit in Oregon. So I've been around. But I came to Texas when my wife got a job in Houston, and I eventually found myself in Austin, which is a city I'm very happy to be in. But like the rest of you, we're gathered here to select somebody to run the Democratic Party, and we need some change. Everybody's saying that. We need change. Why? Why do we need change? Because we can't tolerate Trumpism filtering down into Texas. We've got enough problems as it is. We don't need a Donald Trump running the country. And we don't need any more than the 30 years we've got of Republican rule in Texas. And we have not been very effective in combating this. We had a great candidate in Colin Allred, but he didn't get the kind of support he needed to win. His campaign didn't do a great job, and the Democratic Party didn't do a great job. And if I'm elected, I'm going to change that. We're going to work with campaigns to get good candidates support they need to win. And I appreciate what Aaron said about going to each county seat. We've got to do stuff like that. I can do that. I don't have a trailer, but I'll figure out something. We've got to do that. We've got to go into the hinterlands, as they're called, and we've got to find good people and get good people here to hear what we have to say on big issues, because they're not getting that message. All they're hearing from are about transgendered bathrooms and changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico and all the silliness that Republicans are concerned with. We need to give them solid issues from solid thinking Democrats. And I really appreciate you having me on this forum tonight. I feel really challenged about it, and I really want to be a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Miss Patsy Woods Martin. Floor is yours, ma'am.
Let me unmute. All right. Hello. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Ron. And thanks all of you for tuning in. I really appreciate this opportunity to introduce myself and to share my vision and my hope for the future of Texas and Texans. First, I want you to know I have a proven track record of leading an organization that has recruited, funded, and ultimately elected Democrats across the state. Perhaps of most interest to those of you, those women include Cheryl Cole in Austin, Barbara Gervin Hawkins in San Antonio, Retta Bowers in Dallas, Amanda Edwards, and Ann Harris Bennett in Houston. I did that in my role as executive director of Annie's List. And I start with that information because I want you to know I've always been focused on doing what it takes to win elections in this state. Now, prior to my tenure at Annie's List, I was a fundraiser for United Way Capital Area, where I worked with and ultimately led a team responsible for raising about $18 million year over year. I left United Way to launch an effort called I Live Here, I Give Here, which has generated more than $112 million in digital giving through its program, Amplify Austin. Now, after retiring from Annie's List, as a volunteer, I raised about $700,000 to invest in state house races in 2020. And in 2022, I served as Beto O'Rourke's finance chair in the first quarter of his race for governor. And under my leadership, our team raised about $23 million. I also have deep roots in Texas Democratic politics. My grandfather was actually a precinct chair in rural Montague County, Texas. And as a volunteer, I traveled through East Texas in John Hill's race for governor, and I worked in Ann Richards' winning gubernatorial race. I know what it takes to win elections. Winning elections means gaining power, and gaining power for Democrats means enacting policies which make the lives of regular Texans better. That's what I'm all about. And thank you.
So now we will start the questions. Ron, first one to you, sir.
All right. First question. If elected, what would be your first order of business?
This is to you, Ms. Chair Mims.
Thank you so much. I like to write things down because I'm a visual person. Well, let me get straight to the point. Flipping Texas runs straight through our county parties. What it takes to win is getting more Democrats to the polls and independents than Republicans. Those are the two things it takes to win. In order to get there, we have to be able to have strong county parties who have not only money, okay, we all need money, but the resources and the organizational structure to make them operate efficiently. My first order of business is because I operate like a business, and that is how we changed Denton County and made it one of the best counties in the state of Texas. We do that through strategy. We do that through deciding what we need to raise to get to that point. And then as leader, I can keep us focused. So let me give you an example. I believe in order for a party to be successful, we need to have 4 prongs: fundraising, engagement, voter registration, and get out the vote. My first order of business is going to create a leadership team so that we can look at whatever the methods were done with TDP. And I think the historical trend has been to lose voters, but we look at what has been done with TDP and we create what we need to do. I believe in using strategy. I believe in using people who are experts in their fields to come up with those strategies. And I believe it takes a team effort. So that would be my first order of business, is actually to create a leadership team to look at those 4 areas and develop how TDP needs to be reorganized to be more efficient in getting people to the polls.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Scudder, same question to you, sir.
Yeah, our party grew very quickly, and I'm referring to the apparatus. And when they did it, they skipped a lot of steps. And so to me, the very first thing that we do is start reinvesting in the political power of long abandoned grassroots organizations. And you do that by creating an onboarding system that every precinct chair, county chair, and SDEC member is able to go through when they get their position. Right now, everybody's in charge and nobody's in charge, okay? People aren't given the directives that they're supposed to be given. They aren't given expectations. They don't know what resources are available. And the fact that we don't have any type of onboarding for our grassroots activists is leaving them stranded. People in rural areas and urban areas and suburban areas alike come to us and they say they need help. And folks look at them and say, well, we don't have the money to help you. Well, they didn't ask you for money. They asked you for help. And there are a lot of things that we can do, even if we're in a situation where we're under-resourced, to support and provide help for our grassroots activists, to build a grassroots populist army in this state that's ready to churn out our message and churn out votes. When we do that, we will stop hemorrhaging votes in rural areas. I'm not saying we're going to start winning them. We just have to do better, right? We have to make sure that we're paying attention in safe blue districts that are getting ignored, where we aren't running our numbers up. You have to do it strategically, and it all starts with building a grassroots army. So my first thing, day one, is we're building that onboarding program so that our county chairs, SDC members, and precinct chairs feel supported.
Okay. Mr. Aaron, same question?
Yes, sir. So, look, the job of the Texas Democratic chair is to get people elected. Who are you? Where are you? What can I do to help you win? Travel all over these areas, as I mentioned before, right? First order of business is going to be to get that travel trailer and park it in every county seat. We need to cultivate relationships with these locals. We know that the Republican Party has already infiltrated the churches, right? They've infiltrated all of these rural areas, and they've got people believing that if you're a Democrat, then you're whatever. You can name, pick one, pick the sin, right? So what we need to do is change that rhetoric. How are we going to do that? We're going to do that by establishing these relationships in these small towns, investing in these small towns, right? Because these people have been forgotten. Nobody votes because why should I? My vote doesn't matter. When's the last time you've seen a candidate go to a small town, right? A heavy hitting candidate like Colin Ulrich, right? So that's what we need to do ultimately is I feel we need to cultivate these relationships with these people, have some sort of office in each, at the very least, a county seat. If not a county seat, then at every region of Texas where locals can come and gather and have some sort of democratic, interaction, right? And so that's how we're going to win Texas. Investing in the candidates, investing in the counties, and traveling. Thank you.
Well, thank you, sir. Rabbi Misha Ben David, floor is yours.
Yes, sir. Great question, and one I've thought about quite a bit. I'm going to go around the state. I'm going to get with the county chairs, and I'm going to find out what they need, and we're going to get it to them. We're going to look at their demographics. We're going to look at their voter turnout, and we're going to figure out what we can do at the top of the party to get the resources we need to the bottom of the party in the organizational sense. Because the people in rural Texas are not getting what they need from us. It just isn't happening. We don't want to twist arms, but we've got to be persuasive in getting our stances on issues and getting the importance of what we have to offer to the people in rural areas. And we're just not doing that. And I'm going to make that happen. I'm going to make sure the county chairs are on board and understand what we're doing, and they're supportive, and we're going to support them. We're going to give them resources, whatever they need. If they need folding chairs, we're going to get them folding chairs.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Same question to Patsy Wood Martin.
Sorry, that unmute button gets me every time. So we all know that building wealth and achieving financial security are part of the American dream. Too often Americans are living paycheck to paycheck and never able to achieve their financial goals. That's particularly notable since Texas was recently named the most financially distressed state in America. That's why I want to do this. That's why my first action as chair would be to ensure that Texas Democratic Party is fiscally sound. Concurrently, I would listen to the concerns and the visions of the State Democratic Executive Committee members, along with all other stakeholders, county party chairs, electeds, candidates, allied organizations, and work all together with them to build both short-term and long-term plans to win elections so that we can build power in order to enact democratic policy across the state of Texas.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for your candor and your answers. Wow, I'm motivated. So this next question is going to refer to November 5th. And I want you to think about this, right? If you had to narrow the big loss of November 5th to one thing, the most critical thing, what would it be and why? And this first question is going to go to Mr. Scudder. You will get the answer first.
It's hard to narrow it down to just one thing, because I think the one really obvious answer there is messaging and branding, right? And a lot of that was on a federal level, but it's also on the state level. If voters don't know how awesome the Democratic tax plan was, that would have doubled your homestead exemption and given you a 10% rental rebate back, then we didn't do our job there in the messaging front. But what I will say is that there is a real problem from our perspective as a party. 200,000 people who voted in 2020 and didn't vote in 2024 were Republicans, 200,000 of them. 1.1 million were Democrats. What did we do to make those people feel like voting wasn't worth their time? We as a party have to mobilize our base and turn out the base so that candidates can work on persuasion, okay? Democrats talking to a bunch of Republicans and asking them to vote for Democrats isn't going to work, okay? The candidates can deal with that. Our job is to get the base out. And when you poll those Democrats who stayed home, they compare us to slugs and turtles, and they say that their number one complaint to us is that we don't fight hard enough. And to me, that's tough, because I know that the Democratic Party was there for my family when we needed it. And I know that our electeds are doing their best, but they haven't been getting that messaging support that they needed to succeed. So to me, it is a messaging question of what can we do to make sure that working people understand that we're on their side, that there are 66 billionaires in this state that own more wealth than 70% of Texans combined. And they're waging a war on Texas kids to make sure that they don't get quality educations so that they can keep their wages low, keep them in factories, keep them on assembly lines, and keep them on the farm. I'm a kid that went to Sam Houston State University. I didn't go to any fancy schools. Sam Houston might as well have been Harvard for a kid like me, right? And families that come from where I come from, families who grow up like I do, who are just working every day to put food on the table, they need to know that we're standing up and fighting for them. That's why we lost in 2024. And we're going to keep losing if we don't put working class people in charge of our party and in charge of our messaging.
Well, thank you. Same question to you, Mr. Aurelio. I'm sorry.
It's okay. You can call me Aaron, Nick. It's
Okay,
all right.
Aaron. Okay.
Yeah, no worries. So we need to invest in our candidates, period. How much of the money that was invested into or donated to the Texas Democratic Party was invested into any candidates? I can, if there was ever a candidate that any money was invested in other than like a top caliber candidate, I'm talking about local congressional district, state house candidates, didn't see a dime of it. So we're essentially saying that it's okay to want to run for office, but you're out to graze on your own and figure out your own fundraising, right? So I think one of the biggest things that we need to do, and I feel that we failed as a Democratic Party, is to invest in these candidates, because these candidates are going to be the voice. They can get the movement. They can get the people to go out and vote. They can get the people motivated with their message, with the speech that they're giving, with their influence. But if there's no money, then we have no chance of winning at all. So that's
Thank you. Same question to you, Rabbi David.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, like everybody, November 5th was both a surprise and a sense of horror in my case. And there's a lot of lessons. Like Kendall said, there's a lot of lessons to be learned out of November 5th. The one that sticks with me is we had a good candidate. We had Kamala Harris representing women, representing people of color, representing Democrat working folk, and we couldn't get her message heard. And the media crowd didn't want to hear it. They wanted to hear the daily goings on with the Republicans. They didn't want to hear what she had to say. And somehow we've got to get that message out. I used to be a journalist, and I have some background in this situation here. I know how to get messages out, and we will get the message out if I'm running the Texas Democratic Party. Our message will not be obscured. It will not be overwhelmed by the garbage in the media and the garbage coming from the opponents. We're going to get our message out. It's going to be heard, and it's going to be solid, and it's going to be honest.
Thank you. Miss Patsy Woods Martin, same question to you.
Thank you, Nick. I agree with Kendall and with the rabbi. I believe the majority of Americans have values and views that align with Democratic values and views. You know, we all want good and safe public schools for our kiddos. We want to be able to make the right health care decisions for our families. We want local communities to decide on policies that impact our communities. And we want to earn a living wage. But how we message these priorities matters. And so our message has to resonate with the people, with the voters in Texas and across the United States. Otherwise, we risk continuing to lose those voters. I do think there was another issue that played a key part in the November election, and that was the amount of disinformation that was spread through all the media channels. We have got to combat that. We've got to get a hold of that, and we have got to fight back with Democratic messaging that resonates with our folks.
Thank you. And same question to you, Chair Parker Mims.
Thank you so much. I do. I think we all are in mostly agreement on this question. And Kendall certainly hit it when he said we got to stop messaging to Republicans. So everybody said messaging, and I agree that comes number one. We didn't get the message out. We didn't engage. Those are different. We have to meet them where they're at. Podcasts. So we can talk about messaging. That is number one, and I agree with that. But the bottom line is Texas and our down ballot candidates are largely impacted by the top of the ticket, right? Kamala didn't have the best message, and we were all painted all Republicans, whatever they wanted to paint us, that's what happened. And it sort of affected the down ballot candidates. We can't do anything about that too much. But what we can do in the state of Texas and what our county parties can do is develop better strategic ways to get out the vote. And again, I'm going to not get out the vote, but to get to the polls, our GOTV. I said there's 4 prongs that we need to work on, getting people to the polls. We don't control the national narrative. So what do we control? And I think that's more relevant to the discussion. We control how we can organize our structure to make our county parties the most effective, because it's not the top of the ticket that's going to flip Texas. It's the down ballot candidates that are knocking on doors, and it is those county parties that are fueling those down ballot candidates that's helping them to knock on doors and get people to the polls. That's what we did in Denton. That's why our numbers beat the state of Texas's numbers in getting Democrats to the polls.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you all. And I'm a shameless plug. If you're looking for a platform, Texas in color, there you go. All right, Ron,
All
next
right,
question.
Aaron, you get to go first this time around. What is your plans to help the Democratic win statewide election? What party policies, platform items do you believe need to be changed in order to flip Texas?
Thank you for the question. I think we need to rewrite the entire playbook. We haven't been successful in the last 30 years plus, right? And we've had some very good candidates. The whole objective of the Texas Democratic Party chair is to help candidates get elected, be it local, be it on a federal level, state level, whatever level it is. That's the sole objective of the Texas Democratic Party. Doing that, obviously with the help of, other elected folks, but getting these people out to vote is only going to happen if they believe in the candidate that they're supporting in their area. I'll give you an example. You can't compare a Valley Hispanic to a West Texas Hispanic. It's two different areas, just like you couldn't compare California to a Texan. We have to have a different approach in every region of Texas, right? But ultimately, having the right candidates and investing in these candidates that are able to message to the people in these areas, right? That are able to appease or talk to or speak to whatever issues are happening is what's going to help us flip Texas blue. And that's going to happen by investing in these candidates and in these communities. Again, and with respect to the whole Texas Democratic Party issues or playbook, we need to rewrite it. The closest that anybody ever got to it was Beto O'Rourke. There's some things that we can take from that playbook that we can reiterate or that we can reuse. But for the most part, nobody has this figured out. And we're starting from scratch, essentially. And that's what we got to do.
All right, thank you. Rabbi David, same question.
Yes, I agree with pretty much everything I just heard from everybody. We're getting some great messages out here, and that's what we have to do. We've got to get messages out, and you're right. We have to do it from the bottom of the party all the way to the top of the party. We've got to do it locally, nationally, statewide. We've got to get the resources in place and get the messages in place and dispense them to everybody in Texas. And just like Aaron said, a West Texas Hispanic, a West Texas black man or black woman, a West Texas Jew, and East Texas Jew, they don't see things the same. They live in different areas with different backgrounds and different economies. They need to hear a message that touches them, that reaches their life. Some things are universal. We want a living wage. We want hands off women's bodies. We want police violence against minorities to stop. Certain things are true of everybody, but certain specifics are important to various parts of the state. And we need to get those messages out, and we haven't been doing that.
Okay. Patsy Woods Martin, same question.
You're muted. You're muted.
In order to elect the next statewide office holder as a Democrat in Texas, we've got to start right now. We've got to go on the offense. We've got to fire the incumbent Republicans who are in office right now. These right-wing Republicans are in control of our state, and we need to tell the people across the state what they're doing to them. For example, Republican elected officials are destroying public schools and taking away individual and community freedoms. Minimum wage in Texas is among the lowest in the United States, while our state sales tax is among the highest. This combination of factors make life unaffordable for many Texans. The Republicans are in charge of policy right now, and we need to tell folks about this. Then we need to go and recruit the best candidate we can find to run for the most electable office. And this candidate needs to listen to the voters before they start talking, and they need to tell voters how we're going to address their concerns and help them solve their problems. And the Democratic Party's role is to support these elected officials and these candidates in doing what they're doing to address people's concerns. And only in doing that can we really have a chance of electing a Democrat to office in Texas, anywhere. And it is critical that we do so.
Okay. Same question, Miss Delia Parker Mims.
You're muted.
There we go. First, let's be clear, we will never get a Republican's vote. So when we want to get a statewide candidate, it's going to have to come from our Democrats and our independents. At this point, Republicans are voting a little bit more than Democrats. We're voting a little less, but we have a whole lot of room we could make up to get independents. But we have to also make sure we get all of our Democrats to the polls. So first, let's be clear. Any statewide candidate is going to have to come from our voters. There's no messaging to Republicans. So when we start looking at how to do that, we have to do what they did. Invest in our local school board races. You want to find good candidates? You build from the bench. So the party needs to start investing in those local races. That's what Republicans did. Before we even knew what happened, they had already taken over. And they saw that those spots were important. So that's one thing that we need to do in order to build that candidate that can win statewide. With Democratic independent voters, if you voted for Trump twice or 3 times, you will never vote for a Democrat. So we're not going to waste money on that. Creating better messaging. That's probably the answer that we're going to give for everything. Now, it has always been my dream, and we started to do this in my county, but it has always been my dream that Democrats start messaging the same message. When I ran for commissioner and people were running for justice of the peace, the Republicans down here were talking about the border because they have the same messaging. So when Republicans got to the polls, they didn't know what those positions were. They just knew, I'm afraid of the border bill. I'm going to vote Republican. It's been my dream that we get candidates in the Democratic Party to have that singular messaging and those critical, that will bring back recall to those voters who will say, oh, Democrats stand for this. Now, we don't need to worry about all of us being different because the messaging has to be economic. I agree completely with everybody else. It's got to be an economic kitchen table message. That's how we increase turnout with Democrats, independents, because those are the only ones who are going to vote statewide. Thank you.
All right, Kendall, same question.
And just clarification, this question was about what platform changes we want to see and kind of the blueprint to flip a seat in the state, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there's 2 hats that the state party chair wears. One is chief administrator, one is chief organizer. And this question kind of hits both of them. So let me talk about platform first. I don't believe it's within the purview of the state party chair to decide what is and is not in the platform. Our SDEC and our delegates at the convention are able to make that. We should empower them to do it. As party chair, I don't believe I should be putting my thumb on the scale in any way to tell people what they can and can't do. My job is to make sure that we are empowering the individuals who are elected to the spots, whether they're at convention or on the SDEC, to do their jobs and to do it fairly. So I know that may sound like a cop-out, but I'm just going to say I believe in empowering our activists and letting them create a platform that's right for them. On the topic of the blueprint, there's 2 different mindsets in this state, okay? And they often fight with each other because they're fighting over resources. One is that we have to do better in rural areas. One is that we have to run up our numbers in urban areas. The reality is they're both wrong because they're both right. You got to be able to do them both. We are the party that saved the world in World War II. We put a man on the moon and we created the New Deal and the Great Society. Surely we can put boots on the ground in Rusk and Dallas. Okay. The fact that we can't hold both of those in our heads at once to me is kind of silly. We have to work these blue districts, and it's important that we do it in coordination with the electeds that are there. Electeds feel very disrespected by our party right now. We are not reaching out with them. We are not coordinating with them. And I'm sure instead of asking them for a check, we could ask them for a check to split costs for a staffer to turn out voters in their districts, right? We can do things to work with them instead of just always going to them, asking them for checks where they don't feel like they're getting a whole lot back from us, okay? So to me, the blueprint lies in walking and chewing gum at the same time, respecting people that are on the ground, whether they are knocking on a door or whether they're passing policy. All those people up and down the ring are important. And the number one word that I hear whenever I go around the state, and I traveled 35,000 miles in my pickup last election, the word I hear is disrespect. And we've got to right that ship, because if our people on the ground don't feel respected, we're never going to be able to move forward as a party.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we're going to move on to we've been talking about parties and platforms. Now we're going to get real specific to the Black Caucus with this next question. Many believe the Black vote in Texas and in the United States has been taken for granted. What type of investment are you willing to truly put into getting out the Black vote? Because Texas has more Black people than any other state in the United States. What investment are you truly willing to put in to get out the Black vote? And have you created a plan to get the Black vote out? This question is going to the rabbi first.
Thank you, Nick. Great question. And I was one I was sort of anticipating. So let's see what kind of an answer I have, I guess. Being white, it's easy for white folk because we have always run things, it's easy for us to say what's good for us is good for everybody. And of course, we all know that isn't true. It's not true at all. It never has been. I believe that, first of all, I couldn't get elected to this job if it wasn't for Black folk. If Black folk don't support me, I'm done. That's true of all of us. It's true of Latinos. It's true of many groups in Texas, because Texas is a very diverse state, as we all know. And my feeling is Black people I need to get with Black people in the party, in the counties, and on the state level, and figure out what are the issues that drive them in their neighborhoods. Is it minimum wage? Is it police violence? Is it teen pregnancy? What is it? I need to find out, because I don't know. I live in Austin. I love Austin. I live in East Austin, which is heavily Black, but I'm still a white guy in a white city. And I need to know, and I need to go to the Black neighborhoods and the Black folk in the party and party leadership, and I need to find out. And I'm going to do that. I'm not going to sequester myself.
Thank you. Same question to you, Miss Patsy Woods Martin.
Well, people feel disrespected when they don't feel heard. When they're asked to do things for the greater good and they don't have any input into what those things are. So the first thing I would do would be listen to the leaders of the Black community and understand their plan for getting the vote out in their communities. We have some amazing Black elected officials across the state of Texas who I would engage in lifting them up and inviting them to help lift up the members of their communities to get out, to vote, to change policies. And again, we want these policies changed to make people's lives better. And talking about them in that way, I believe, will also make a difference. So listen, empower, lift up, and ultimately do the work to get it done.
Thank you. Chair Mims, Parker Mims, this question is yours. You're muted, you're muted, you're muted, you're muted. Chair Mims, you're muted. Okay,
That's
start over.
unfortunate, because I was really good.
No, let's go. We want to hear it.
Yes. So the first thing you asked me is what would I do? The first thing I would do, and I said I would create a leadership team, because the road to flipping Texas is not in just selecting a new chair. It is in getting us all engaged, and so that we all have a role to do. PACs, volunteers, leadership, elected officials. So I would create that leadership team to examine what are we doing now. I would certainly want the Black Caucus to let me know what your goals were, because I believe as chair, my job is to be inclusive of all people, not just races, but also generations. We had that problem in our county, but it was more generation oriented, and we were able to work through it. And now we operate as one team. So in that leadership team, including the Black Caucus, I would want to know what your goals were and whether or not right now the Black Caucus currently feels as though they're empowered to do things. Because we do have, it is not just going to be the Black chair, the white chair, or whatever your thing is that goes out and talking to Black folks. It's going to be all of us deciding that inclusivity is important and having a strategy to determine how we're going to increase those numbers. And I think that goes into one of those 4 points that I listed, engagement. And I would want to see how the Black Caucus is doing that, so that I can ensure that there is an organizational structure that empowers empowers us all to do that, to increase representation. So we all feel heard and we all feel valued.
Thank you. Mr. Scudder, question is yours.
Yeah, let me start by, I'm going to try to get this into 2 minutes, but I'm doing my best, guys. This is a big loaded question for 2 minutes. First, nothing would be more inappropriate than me having a plan right now, okay? No plan should be created without me talking to you, Frederick, right? Well, who's the chair of the Black Caucus in the SDC. No plan would be appropriate without coordinating with the Black Caucus, with Coalition of Black Democrats, and with our esteemed vice chair, Shea Wyrick Cathy, who I've had the great pleasure of serving as vice chair alongside, and our treasurer, Otis Ebagaru. Those are stakeholders that are sitting at the table that deserve to be treated with respect and be a huge crafter in this plan. But here's what I've been thinking through, and here's what I pitched to you, okay? What I think, this stretches across a lot of constituency groups. They aren't often utilized the way they should be. So here's my thought. Everybody always talks about campaigning year round, putting grassroots field workers on the ground year round, but nobody talks about how to actually do it. Nobody talks about implementing it and getting it done. So why don't we work with our constituency caucuses to do that? Because if you send out regular field workers when it's an off year, it's going to be strange. But you can work with the Black Caucus, say, okay, within our strategic plan, what are the targeted areas that we are wanting to go for? You can't just hire a Black constituency outreach person to make a couple of electeds happy because it curries you political favor and move on. They have to be worked in with a larger strategic plan, okay? So within our targets of where we're trying to turn out votes or where we're trying to flip seats, where does it make sense to place this person to start building year-round relationships in these communities, okay? So that we're getting back to treating these communities that we have left completely disrespected. We're putting them back into the fold, and we're doing it year-round and showing up and being present, okay? That's how you do it. You start with year-round constituency outreach, and that comes from me not picking who that person is. I think that our caucuses should have the right to pick who that person is, and they should be local people, not folks that we're just bringing in from DC or from whatever place that some muckety muck in Austin or Dallas thinks they're friends with, right? It's about people on the ground being empowered to do the work they want to do. I could talk about it more, but I know that my time is up. I'm sorry. I'm doing my best.
Thank you for your answer. Mr. Aaron.
Yes, this is Texas, not Georgia. It's not California. You know, including every single ethnicity is very important to us winning in this state, right? The biggest thing that I feel that can happen with the Black Caucus or, you know, any other ethnicity in Texas is them having the ability to contact the Texas Democratic Party chair. We can't take that vote for granted. We can't just assume that every election we're going to have the Black or the Hispanic vote, right? So I think one of the most important things is, like with the Black Caucus of Texas, the Black Democratic Caucus of Texas, NAACP, having people who lead those roles have access to the TDP so that they can express their concerns in various areas of Texas, you know, and then relay that information to the rest of the people around Texas, right? So I think that's one of the most important things that we can do, or one of the most important things that the TDP should be able to do.
Thank you. All right.
All right. All right. Patsy Wood Martin, this question right here. Have you ever been involved in a large scale fundraising? If so, what strategy did you use and how much did you raise and what were the funds used for?
I have been. Involved intimately in large scale fundraising. And I don't, you know, I'm not sure what you define as large scale fundraising. But you know, I started my fundraising career at United Way Capital area, where we built, you know, we had a product to sell, and we were able to articulate the value of that product to the folks we were asking to invest in it. And then two, we built a team and we identified prospects. And then we went with the most appropriate person to visit with those prospects. I did this at United Way, where we raised every year around $18 million. It took a team. We raised everything from nickels to hundreds of thousands of dollars from individuals. I did this when we built Amplify Austin, which was a purely digital platform for giving. And we brought together a team of stakeholders. I did this with Annie's List, where we built steering committees around the states. We had events. We talked to major donors. And major donors are defined differently by different people, anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 to hundreds of thousands of dollars. We did this in Beto O'Rourke's campaign, where we built a team. We assigned by area. We looked at prospects, and like I said, in the first several months, we raised $23 million.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Miss Delia Parker Mims.
I unmuted it.
Same question.
All right. Well, I have not been involved in multi-million-dollar fundraising, so I'm going to tell you two things: how I increase fundraising in my county, which is different comparative to the multi-million. I get that. And then secondly, what I would do at the state level. When I sat in this chair, I said I was not going to do the same old every day, just pick up the phone and beg people for money. I knew, because I had a vision, that we were going to get more money by changing it and preparing ourselves for it. So the first thing I did is I brought a comptroller, because if you're going to get lots of money, you want people to be able to feel that you're transparent. So we did that because I was preparing the way. I am a person of faith, but so that's what I saw. So I then went out, got a professional fundraiser, and we went around. This was in, I think, Beto's race, and we started doing fundraisers with donors outside of our area, in our area. Then it was a little hard because people don't like to give money, but we were able to do that, and we raised $200,000. Doesn't sound like a lot, but that was a whole lot for our county party and our Get Out the Vote, and we put all of that into our Get Out the Vote. To increase funding, also we increased our email fundraising. So we started doing campaigns to do that. We got more sustaining members. Now, what I would do as chair, I would go to other states, blue states, like Stacey Abrams did. And I would talk about the fact that our sisters, they need us. We need them. I would tell them everything that's happening in the state of Texas to women, and I would start raising money with other states, because that is what she did to raise millions of dollars. And there's no reason why we can't replicate what we know already has worked. And finally, I would create a campaign that says Texas money stays in Texas. And as the Democratic Party chair, I would want to get all the donors. I would get a list of all the donors who are sending their money outside of candidates in Texas, outside of Texas, and I would let them know we need to start funding Texas, because if it's going to be all of us, that includes those people who can write those big checks. But if we want to flip Texas, we've got to start investing in it, and people who have money got to start investing in it. And even our small donors need to stop sending money out of Texas, because we've got to flip Texas and we got to invest in it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kendall, same question.
Well, as the current finance chairman for the party, I can tell you I have been involved in fundraising. Of course, a lot of that work comes from our staff, who does just phenomenal work there on the ground to help keep the party operating. Aside from my work within the party, this cycle alone, I raised more than $1 million into different buckets. That went anywhere from direct voter contact to direct contributions to candidates. The 22 cycle, I raised 1.6. So I have been involved in this type of fundraising. I want to point out something. Nonprofit fundraising is very different than political fundraising, and those tax advantages just don't exist. And it becomes a lot more difficult to get people to give that money places where there are not tax advantages to put it. We should start having real discussions with folks about estate planning. I don't think as a party we've really professionalized to that level of financial planning to create endowments. I'd like to see endowments created for each of our director level positions to fund them in perpetuity. That is not something that happens overnight. That is a long-term plan. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time's today. And so it's time to kind of start talking about how do we set ourselves up structurally to succeed? Because if folks in the 80s and 90s had thought about things like purchasing facilities, we wouldn't be in a lot of the problems that we're in right now, or creating these endowments. If you take the top 10 counties in the state and the state party, they're all renting their offices and their headquarters. Add up what the rent is, and in one cycle, it's $2.5 million. First $2.5 million raised, every cycle goes to rent. We just haven't had this long range planning of how to make the party succeed and be stable. This party ain't going nowhere. Okay. We have to make sure we're planning. And I hope to, if my heart holds up, I'll probably be around for another 40, 50 years in activism. We haven't had a lot of chairs under the age of 40, but I'd be one of them. And I would sure like to see the party, whenever I'm kind of trying to mentor young people into the party, being strong and able for them to function. And so it's about long range financial planning in addition to doing what's right in front of us, which will involve kind of your typical fundraising, but also really focusing on this grassroots piece and trying to go into estate planning and some endowment creation programs I'd love to talk about more if we get more time.
All right. Thank you, sir. Aaron, same question.
Yes. So in my campaign, social media was one of the most powerful tools that I could use, reaching out to people, sending out messages, having tweets / Facebook posts, videos on deck, ready to deploy at any given moment to try to get some sort of funding from various people across the United States, but mostly from Texas. Additionally, when something, a hot topic or a hot button topic would happen on the news, we'd have posts already ready to rebuttal those, right? And those were helping us get funding for my campaign. Also hired a company called Momentum Campaign who helped John Ossoff get elected down in Georgia. They were helping out for a little while. Then we started figuring out that we can do this for a lot more affordable, a lot less money. Let me just say that than what was happening with this company right here. Cold calling. One of the things that I've done is really just work the phones. And one of the hardest things I've had to hear is that a donor who's been donating to the Democratic Party won't donate another nickel because how they feel of how Texans have voted, right? Specifically, this previous election, people not believing that Ted Cruz could win again, Greg Abbott winning again. I mean, people, voters, donors feel extremely defeated right now. And they, so I think that we're going to have to change that. I think that we're going to have to put our own personal touch and hopefully win those donors back. Talk to them is my goal, to try to get them to donate again, right? So I think that's how I've been successful with my campaign. Social media, it's a powerful tool. You have a lot more time to think and write versus being put in the hot seat like right now. You have a lot more time to think and write and put into perspective, intelligently what people should know about why you're raising money. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Rabbi David, same question.
Thank you, Ronald. I have not been a large-scale fundraiser. I have not done that. I'm going to be honest about that. But I'll tell you what I have done. I was a fundraiser. I'm a musician, and I've been a musician for almost all my life. And I've done a lot of fundraising for organizations along the way. I did fundraising for Musicians United for Safe Energy when I lived in Alaska. And we were trying to prevent our fishing grounds from being depleted by oil. And in Texas, I've raised thousands and thousands of dollars for organizations like Services Invested in Musician Support. And I raised a lot of money for the Democratic Party when I lived in Dallas back in the 80s through musical events. And that's what I do. I put on dozens and dozens of musical shows to promote candidates, promote issues, to promote organizations that are progressive. And I want to keep doing that. And I believe in music. Music is a great tool, and that's what I'd use. If I could get Beyonce and Bruce Springsteen into the Toyota Center in Houston, that's what I'd do.
All right, thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. So this next, I'm going to ask each one of you 3 questions. They are yes or no answers. If you answer no, I'm going to give you a minute to answer why you said no. Okay? So I'm going to ask all 3 to each candidate, and then I'll move on. So the first, Chair Mims, you're going to be first. Okay? First question is, will you commit to adding more Black staff members at the senior level of TDP?
No.
Okay, you have a minute to answer why.
Well, I think I want to know what the makeup is, and I want to add the best person. Okay, I believe right now that we've got to get away from everything just being about identity, and that makes it better. We need the best people to do the best jobs. And I believe if the Black Coalition has people they support and are active and want them on that interviewing list for those jobs, then they will put them forward. But I'm not going to commit to hiring a certain number of any people at this point right now. No.
Thank you. That's question one. Question two. Will you commit to adding Black consultants to work on the 2026 statewide coordinated campaign?
No.
Your minute. Go.
Basically the same answer. I would be completely lying with you if I said I will hire anybody based on race. I'm just not going to do it. And I think that goes with our messaging that has been terrible. We've been playing in identity politics, and we have to have better candidates, better staff people, better, get our volunteers stronger. And it cannot just be depending upon race. Now, I will tell you in Denton County, I have increased all of those areas. My staff, they have young people, they have older people, I have Hispanics, I have Black people. I am an inclusive person. I understand that, but I do, and I think it's important to have that balance as a leadership. I think the leader needs to be inclusive and approachable, but I'm not going to get into identity politics when we do our messaging, and I'm not going to commit to just hiring somebody because of their race. But I do commit to having an inclusive environment.
Last question. Will you commit to the next DNC seat being awarded to a Texas Black appointee?
Now, the DNC, I'm not certain how many seats that we have, and
Remember, this is a yes. This is a yes or no
Okay.
first. Yes or no?
No.
Okay, now you can talk. Good. Now go.
I actually don't know how many that we have right now. I do think the seats should be reflective of the people in Texas. I think when we send people when we pick seats, it should reflect who we look like in the state of Texas. So I don't know what we have right now, or how it is operated, but I would love for it to look like the state of Texas.
Okay, thank you. Same question goes to Kendall. Let's go with the first one. I know I'll re-ask it again if you need me to, all three of them.
Yeah, the first one's yes, and I'd like to be able to elaborate a little bit. I know that we're only elaborating on no's.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Yeah, the elaboration is I agree with the sentiments that Chairwoman Parker Mims brought up, but I will say that if I win, I understand that I'm a white man that's the chair and she would be a Black woman that's the chair. And so the dynamics are a little different there. I think it's important that we're inclusive and we have people sitting at the table that reflect a lot of different viewpoints. And because that situation's a little bit different, yes, on that first one, I would commit to that. And that is not adding Black staff simply as constituency outreach. That is within the organization holding roles that run up and down the ladder.
Okay, so the next one was about consultant.
No, I won't make that commitment. The reason I won't make that commitment is because I've never, even as the finance chairman of the party, gotten a list of who our consultants are we work with. It is something that I just don't know because it hasn't been something that we openly talk about too much. It comes across in budget discussions, but I don't know who's actually been paid. I want to do a full reassessment of what consultants we work with. I can commit to you that I will be intentional and I will do my best to try to make sure that we're getting there. But until I figure out exactly what we're doing, I want to bring things in-house instead of getting to this point where we're paying all these consultants because I think it's a lot less expensive if we build these things in-house. And so I can't commit to consultants because I want us to build a strong state party that has permanent staff, not consultants.
Okay, thank you. And the last one was the DNC seat.
Man, I'm going to have to give you a no on this, and here's why.
Okay.
There are a lot of constituency groups, and some that don't have DNC seats yet, and some that don't have the same level of parity. The Black Caucus currently has 2 designated. I know groups like AAPI just got one. I know the Youth Bloc only has one. There's a lot of constituency groups that haven't been represented yet. And so to me, if we get that added in, I want to make sure that we're being fair to people. And fairness is a really high priority. And I'm never going to lie to you. It'd be really easy for me to just tell you yes. I'm just going to be honest with you. I think we got to make sure that we're including as many voices, diverse voices at the table as we can.
We appreciate your honesty. Thank you. Mr. Aaron, you need me to restate the questions?
No, sir.
Yeah.
Yes to all three, and I'd like to elaborate why real quick.
Please.
Okay, only because, look, we didn't create this racial divide in Texas. That started back in 2016, okay? Now, it doesn't matter if it's a Black, Hispanic, whatever ethnicity it is, we are all as talented, if not more, than any other race. So I feel that if we're doing our job as a TDP or as a Texas Democratic Party, then we're seeking out these skilled individuals, regardless to race, that can do these jobs, and also help the communities feel like they're being, included, And so that's why I say yes to all three.
Okay. Rabbi.
Yes, sir. I'm going to say no to all three.
Okay.
And I'm going to use pretty much the same reasoning that the good chairwoman used. I don't want to be beholden to anybody. I don't want somebody coming up to me and saying, you owe me this. And I don't want to be able to have to say, something besides your best abilities and your best knowledge and education and experience is going to give you this job. I don't want to do that. I want to get out of the identity politics and use the talents of the people that present themselves as my choice. And I can say this, I will do everything with consulting with like the Democratic Black Caucus and the Latino Caucus and the Women's Caucus. I will definitely consult them, and I want to hear what they say. They may not always like what I do, but they're going to know that I understand them.
All right. Same question to you, Miss Patsy Woods Martin. Do you need me to restate them?
No.
Okay.
Let me be very clear. Yes on 1, yes on 3, and on 2, yes and no. I think we have too many consultants, period. I would ensure that a Black person, if we were to hire more consultants, would be in the running to be hired. But really, I'd like to take a look at the consultants. Sometimes I think consultants are running politics in Texas, and they have done a shitty job. And then let me also say that I know that if I am elected party chair, Shay will lose her seat on the DNC. I will do everything I can to ensure that the chair of the DNC puts her in an at-large position going forward.
Thank you. Thank you for your candor.
Yeah.
All right, Ron,
All right,
it's on
I'm
you.
going to touch base on the question that you asked earlier, Frederick.
Yes, please.
Because after the election, I went around and asked a group of Blacks if they voted. And they all say candidly to me, no. And I said, what was the reason? They feel ignored by the system, and the Democratic Party take their support for granted. One person put it like this: it's like being invited to a party where you know no one's there, but you're expected to bring the cake. So my question is, what step can we take to re-energize and mobilize the Black voters who feel their voices and votes have been overlooked or taken for granted? I will start off with Kendo.
I'll start by saying that as party people, we tend to get into our weird little circles and think that some of the symbolic things that we do amongst ourselves matter. And to us, it matters. And to voters on the ground, they don't even know it happened and they do not care. Right. So I want to bring up a point that investing in communities that have been traditionally overlooked in the form of constituency outreach is, in my mind, one of the best things that we can do to build those bonds in the community. That's a commitment I'm ready to make, right? That's how we get serious about long-term, year-round organizing in this state. I talked about it a little bit earlier, but you work with your electeds, you work with the caucus. That's how you make that happen. That's a commitment I'm ready to make. And I've told you throughout this forum, I'm not going to make commitments to you unless I think I can deliver on it. Okay. That's what how I think that we help make inroads in solving that issue. Here's another point I want to make. When Donald Trump talks to a white person, he says the same thing as when he talks to a Black person, the same thing as when he talks to a Hispanic person. And I told you this, Chairman Nickens, if you start putting people in groups, you better make sure it's the right groups. And I think as a party, we segment people into groups and start talking to them as if we think that group knows this and that group knows this, and this is what Hispanics think. This is what Black people think. And the reality is that's just not how you should be separating people into groups when you're talking to them. Okay. The reality is working people are getting the shaft in this state and in this country. Every single time that we are asked to make sacrifices or compromises, it falls on the back of the working people in this state. And that includes people of color who have traditionally been marginalized and who have a disproportionate less amount of wealth than even the other working people in this state. Okay. So creating one large overarching message that talks to the working people of this state to make sure they know that we're on their side, in addition to the constituency outreach piece where we're working within those communities to forge those relationships, I think that starts to deliver results for people. You don't just forgive people's medical debts when your term's about to end. You do it at the beginning of your term. Right? I'm thrilled that we're doing the right things, but these things are happening 4 years late. We have to throw down and fight like things matter. If we're going to say democracy's at stake, we need to act like it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Aaron, same question.
Yes, sir. So empowering the SDECs and the local county chairs is only a portion, or I feel is only some of what could fix what we have happening with these types of voters. Ultimately, it's going to fall on the head of the TDP, and that's the chair. Going and getting involved in these communities, being able to speak with and interact with these voters, right, personally, that's what's going to change the dynamics in the state, period. We can create 50 plans, that haven't worked for the last 30 years. The bottom line is it comes down to the TDP chair to go out into these areas, talk to these people, let them know that you're available, drink some coffee with them, just talk about the weather, talk about whatever it is. But these relationships need to start, right? And if the chairs and the SDCs haven't already cultivated them, if they have already cultivated them, go in there and show your support. Let them know that they're not by themselves. Go to the local, expand it a little further if you can, and tell them why you're a Democrat. Why, what's the message that you're bringing? Why do you believe what you believe? Getting personable with these people, I feel, is going to change that mind frame, because it happens a lot in the areas that I grew up in. And a lot of these little rural areas, there's a lot of people that feel like it don't matter. But the fact of the matter is this: you take away the Black people and the Hispanic people and all the people of non-color in any community across Texas, and you're going to have a complete collapse of economy, because nobody's going to do the work that we're willing to do for the pay that we're willing to pay for the hours that we're willing to work, period. And so until we understand how all these people, what motivates them, and obviously higher pay rate, we're all on the same page with that. We're all on the same page. The bottom line is we got to get these people to believe in something other than just a top-down policy. No, sir. This is Texas. We're diverse in every way. And we need to speak to each area, to each individual specifically. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Rabbi David, same question.
Yes, sir. Great question. I really appreciate whoever asked this, because I like this question a lot. And I'm thinking what I'm going to say when I'm hearing everybody else talk. And I have a million great ideas, but I don't want to get into detail about that. One of the things that occurred to me, that as a Jew, my Sabbath is Saturday. Well, if I'm going to be chair of the Texas Democratic Party, I'm going to go to churches on Sundays. That's what I'm going to do. That's one of the many things I'm going to do. A lot is happening in Texas churches, and a lot of Democrats are being ignored because we don't feel we have the moral standing to go into churches. And they don't think, a lot of churches don't welcome us. But I want to go into churches. I want to go into Black churches. I want to go into Latino churches, and I want to go into white churches. And I want to tell them what the Texas Democratic Party is doing and why it's important to them, because they're not hearing it. And a lot of things are happening in churches that we're not told about. A lot of information is being passed, and a lot of ideas are being expressed. And that impresses me that I need to, as a Jew, I'm comfortable in my space in a synagogue. I'm going to get out of that. I'm going to go other places. I'm going to go to churches. I'm going to go to football games. I'm going to go to a lot of places where people gather and talk. Like Aaron said earlier, going to sit down and have coffee with them. I don't drink, but I'll sit down and have coffee with them, have a soda with them, have a piece of pie with them. I'll do that. And I'm going to find these people, and I'm going to get people like me that think the same way, and I'm going to get them out in the community, working with people on a grassroots level. That's got to happen, and it's got to be done with face-to-face conversation and acceptance of each other. That's how it has to happen.
All right, thank you. Patsy Wood Martin, same question.
Would you mind repeating it briefly?
The question was, what steps can be taken to re-energize and mobilize Black voters who feel their voices and votes have been overlooked or taken for granted?
Okay. Yeah, I feel like we've touched on this earlier, and I think, the answer lies in listening to people in Black communities and building relationships when we're not asking Black voters to do something. And the way I see to do that is to start with members of our SDEC, to start with Black county chairs, to start with activists in Black communities, and to work together to build a coalition, to listen, and to involve, to engage, and then to excite members of the Black community. And people are excited when they have worked to build a plan, to execute a plan. They're ready to engage their neighbors in executing that plan, which in this case would be voting. It's the same for Black people as it is for anyone else. The only thing I would say to that is we've got to respect the deep, deep loyalty that Black folks, and especially Black women, have exhibited to the Democratic Party for generations.
All right, thank you. Delia Parker Mims, the same question.
You're muted. There you go.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Okay. The question was, what steps can be taken to re-energize and mobilize Black voters who feel their voices and votes have been overlooked or taken for granted?
Thank you. Well, first, let me say that I have to talk real fast because we're doing this, so I would love to talk to anyone later. But if you really want to know my perspective on how we do anything, go to my website, votedelia.org, and I have a blog called One Team. And I talk about this specifically. It's a blog called One Team, not just this, but increasing engagement. I'm torn with this question because I think democracy is such a beautiful thing, and the only price we have to pay is to vote and to be an informed voter. And so at a certain point, there's a civic responsibility to want to know something, because I know that the Black Caucus puts things out there, and I know that I'm in a sorority, we're constantly out there. So on the one hand, I'm kind of torn because we all need to do better, not just Black folks, but everybody has to do better at getting information. I remember how the Black people were asking Kamala questions, and I thought, why don't you do some research? I'm torn. But here's the reality. We have to increase engagement. I do believe that we're out there. I know I'm out there. I know we're out there, but we can't do it just at get out the vote. If we're doing it at get out the vote time, then we're already behind the 8 ball. The Republicans have already been engaging all year long. They never stop. They get engaged every Sunday morning. They get engaged on podcasts. They get engaged on social media platform that they've now taken over. So they're engaging all year long with their people. We come out during get out the vote, we're already too late and behind the 8 ball. So we have to increase engagement. We have to have a strategic system that gets things like our Black caucuses, get PACs to do more civic education, get our elected officials out of their office and engaging. The idea that people think Democrats have made Texas bad and we haven't been in office for over 30 years, that's because we're not engaging. And all of the wonderful things the Biden administration did for Black folk, for Black women, people don't know that because we're not engaging and we're not messaging. So I do think it's our responsibility as an American to get information, but as an organization, we have to increase our engagement to all communities in all mediums.
Thank you.
So now we're at the point where we're going to have a closing argument. So this is candidates. First, let me thank you all for coming tonight and engaging and giving us your candor. You're going to get 2 minutes to give us your closing and where people can reach you and get more info and talk to you, right? Because this is important. We need an ongoing, engaging conversation. So we're going to start with, I'm going to go on my screen on this one. So let's go with, I'm looking at my screen. So Kendall, you will be first in the closing. 2 minutes, sir.
I want to thank you so much for putting this on. And I think it is really important, the point you made at the top, that you put it on when you did, because whoever was ready to serve our party should have been ready to file and step up and do it. And I respect and appreciate that y'all understood that as a caucus. The reality is, Black folks have always gotten it. They've saved our country more times than we deserve, frankly, and they have been the backbone of our party. And then when it was Black women's turn to take the helm, people in our party stayed home. And it was incredibly disrespectful, and it needs to be acknowledged that if you're going to have a coalition party, every person in that coalition, every group in that coalition needs to be treated with respect. And it ties into another kind of thing that was hanging in the air at the last SDEC meeting, and that's about our vice chair. I want to make something very clear. I've had conversations with Vice Chair Shea Wyrick Cathy. I have served with her. She is an incredibly competent individual, and I cannot wait to work with her. And I've told her, I'm putting you to work, girl. Let's go. And so I'm just so excited about doing this work. I hope that today and throughout the next few months, I've demonstrated to you that, number one, in this field, these folks are all wonderful folks. But I have a very unique understanding of the administrative piece of this party. I just do. For 22 years, I've served on every level of it. I've given my life to this party. I've waited tables so that I could afford the $20 to travel somewhere in the state to start a Young Democrats chapter, okay? This party means the world to me because the people in it are so great, and I would love the opportunity to lead. I hope that I've also demonstrated to you in the organizing hat that we talked about earlier that I'm the kind of person that rolls up his sleeves and gets things done. I'm a workhorse. I'm not always a show horse. But I'm ready to go around this state and fight with you. I've been in the trenches with you for years. But I've also shown to you that I'm willing to step up and be a reformer, even when establishment doesn't like it, even when establishment wants to keep things going the way they are. I stand up and I'm always on the side of the grassroots and the working people in this state. And as a chairman, I'm going to be a chairman for everybody. I just can't wait to have the opportunity to keep working with you guys and lead this party that has given so much to me and my family. And thank you guys so much for the opportunity to be here today and to share a stage with these awesome Democrats around the state. Y'all are just wonderful people. Looking forward to working with all of you.
So one more thing. I'm going to let you say one more thing. How can we reach you? How can the people reach you?
So my name's Kendall Scudder, KENDALLSCUDDER. You can see it in this little box right here. You can reach me on every social media outlet except for Twitter, because I'm not interested in that, at Kendall Scudder. Or you can hit me up on my website, kendallscudder.com. I'm awfully responsive. It's kind of a problem. My wife has issues with it. She wants me to put some restraint in.
Well, thank you. Rabbi, your closing, sir.
Yes, thank you, Nick. I really appreciate this gathering tonight. This has been very informative to me. I've learned a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of great people that would probably serve this party really, really well. I didn't see anybody that I thought, I hope he doesn't get elected. I hope she doesn't get elected. I don't see anybody like that. Everybody I saw was articulate, smart, capable, and well-intentioned, and that's kind of what I am. So I'm going to try and set myself apart. I am not what I call a party apparatchik. I'm not somebody who has been schooled and skilled in the ways of the Texas Democratic Party. I've worked on a local level. I started working for Jimmy Carter in 1976, the first election that I was old enough to vote in. I went house to house for Jimmy Carter. Since then, I was a delegate to the state convention in '88 for Jesse Jackson and in '92 for Bill Clinton. And I've been a part of every election since then. Fundraising, knocking on doors, making phone calls. I got to sit in a phone bank with Ann Richards herself and have discussions about football and barbecue and all sorts of cool stuff. And she told me a lot of things that have stuck with me for years and years and years about running a party, running a state government. And what I believe is I'm an outsider. I'm definitely an outsider. I'm not an insider at all. And that has both its advantages and disadvantages. Do I know the party inside and out like a lot of these other fine people? I do not. Am I smart and capable? Yes. I've had a number of careers. I've just spent 30 years as a counselor. Before that, I spent 15 years as a journalist. So I've got a lot of skills and a lot of learning in my background. And that's what I bring to you. I bring to you experience. I've run a small business. I know how to run business right. I'm just a real smart guy. That's all I can tell you.
How do we reach you, sir?
Yes. I'm on Twitter. That's where I focus my energy right now. At Misha Ben David, MISHABENDAVID. I welcome your follow, and I will follow you.
Thank you. Miss Patsy Woods Martins, your closing, please.
Thank you, Nick. And more importantly, thanks to everyone who has taken time out of your lives to watch this forum. You know, when I was working with candidates at Annie's List, we always started by asking them to answer the question, why me? Why now? So why me? Why am I running for the chair of the Texas Democratic Party? You know, I've visited with many members of the State Democratic Executive Committee and other elected officials around the state. And what I've heard is that the SDEC is looking for someone who can build an organization, who can take it to the next level. Someone who can listen to and work with multiple stakeholders to build and execute a plan to win elections. And of course, you can't execute a plan unless you fund it. I can do all of that. I have a proven track record across the state. So why now? You know, I have a good life right now. Why would I want to jump into this huge project? And believe me, I know that this is a full-time project and I'm ready to take it on. And the reason I am is because as a mother and a grandmother and a fourth generation Texan, my interest in serving as chair is extremely personal. And it rises out of my deep concern for the future of the children of Texas. Their future is at serious risk, starting with our education system, which is supposed to be the great equalizer. Yet Texas public schools rank 41st in the nation for fiscal health.
10.
And am I out of time? I'm talking slowly. Okay. You know, historically, education inequalities led to lower incomes, reduced social mobility, and poorer health outcomes, which we all know disproportionately impacts communities of color. The future of regular Texans, all of us, is under attack, and our children and our state deserve better.
How can we reach you?
You can call me. My number is 512-633-3232.
Say it again, please, for people that didn't have a pen.
Okay, 512-633-3232. And my email is patsyintexas@gmail.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chair Parker Mims. You're muted. You're muted. There you go.
I've said that about 700 times tonight. Well, that's all right. Okay. Well, I appreciate you having us here, giving us this opportunity to speak with you. And I've heard a lot of really good ideas, and I agree with really much of what everybody here sitting has to say. But when you ask, what is my closing argument? I want you to think of this. If a Fortune 500 company is operating terribly, you can decide to promote within, or you can decide to bring somebody out from and blow it up and create a new organization to get better economies of scale so that they can make more money. What we're talking about is getting people to the polls, getting people registered, and creating an organizational structure that helps our county parties operate efficiently, because flipping Texas goes through our county parties. I am here today sitting before you in a position of success. I have sat in this chair as a county party chair, and I have done those two things that we need in order to flip Texas. We need to get Democrats to the polls, and we need to continuously register them. Since I've been chair, Denton County has been #1 in the state in increasing Democratic turnout. The trajectory in the nation, as well as Texas, has been Democrats going down. As you mentioned, we have not excited even Democrats to vote, but I'm telling you we've done that in Denton County. We didn't do that just because we had money. We increased fundraising under my leadership, but the next year we did it because we had economies of scale. We didn't even have the same amount of money, but we had better systems, and we had perfected the way that we did our outreach, and we were still able to increase and even improve from the year before. So I implore you to think about where we're at as a state party. You need someone strategic, somebody willing to sit down, listen to people, create a strategic plan, and a leader who has the power, the courage, and the ability to stick to that plan. And then you win. So thank you guys for tonight. Thank you for having me. And we'll see y'all at the next forum. We'll get to meet.
Tell us how to reach you. Tell us how to reach you.
You can reach me, and it's very easy. VoteDelia.org. VoteDelia.org. And you can reach me. You can see, you can hear some of all the things that I have written, many things about how we need to move forward. So that's a great way to go.
Thank you. Mr. Aaron.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you to everyone that is watching tonight. Thank you to the Texas Democratic Black Caucus for having us tonight. Hoping I can get this all out. My whole entire life has been a life of service. From the moment that I graduated high school, I joined the military, deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. Once I got out, I traveled all over, well, simultaneously while I was in the military, I traveled all over Texas and the United States, building churches. And a lot of these counties that we're talking about right now, Waxahachie, Del Rio, Amarillo, Lubbock, I've helped build churches in all these communities. You know, I've pretty much spent all my 20s doing all of that, right? Currently, I'm serving on the board of this company called Texas Top Prospects that helps inner city kids stay off the streets and play football here in San Antonio, Texas. It's a pretty cool organization. But this is why I'm running. We are in a dangerous time right now, okay? We need change. There are county chairs that I've already spoke with that are not, a lot are not motivated. I can name 134 of them off the top of my head. You know, there are what feels like in an already uphill battle of winning a red state of Texas, which we all know is not a red or a blue state, it's a non-voting state. In an uphill battle where, let's just say, Republicans dominate us right now. There's already a division in our party, various factions. My goal is to bring unity amongst all these factions, right? Work together with each and every single organization, caucus, and county, so that they can know that they all have a seat at the table and that we're all working in this together, right? It's not going to be easy. We're not going to win every argument. It's like a marriage, right? We're not going to agree 100% on everything, but we're going to compromise and we're going to try to do the best with what we have to make Texas a better place, a safer place for the LGBTQIA plus community, for the senior citizens, right? For everybody who feels marginalized, for every group of people that has been marginalized and attacked by the Republican Party and demonized for whatever reason, we're going to protect all of them. Right now, we need to be worried about and thinking about and protecting this mass deportation issue that we have happening. So there's a lot to do. I'm one of you. I'm a worried, concerned citizen who wants to do his part and join this race. You can reach me at 210-213-6294. My name is Aaron, like in the Bible, Aaron. Last name is Arguijo, Arguijo. Type my name anywhere, social media, www. That's how you'll get in touch with me. Thank you, Texas. I look forward to serving.
Give your phone number one more time, please.
210-213-6294. Email address, tx@aaronarguijo.com.
Thank you. Ron, you have the closing, and then I will finish. I will add something in the end.
Well, I wanted to see if I see that Justin is on here. If anybody had any questions or any concerns.
Well, there were some questions in the chat. I mean, this is your platform. Do you want to? It's on you. You the boss on this one.
If there's any questions that you, Justin or Sabrina, was there any questions that we need to cover?
Yeah, we got some good questions on here. There was a couple of questions that I don't know if our candidates have the time to go through all these.
We'll give them. Let's do this. Give me each one of you three. Give the best one, and we'll give them 1 minute to answer it. How about that? So you, Justin, grab your best one. Sabrina and Tammy, grab your best one that you think is the best one. Let's do that. And while they're searching for that question, any questions that we don't get to, I'm going to forward all the questions to the candidates so they can have them, and then they can reach back out, or they can you can reach them on their platforms, as they said, and maybe they'll make a video and address some of the questions so they can answer it that way. so we can get some of these questions answered. Justin or Tammy or Sabrina, you have one?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
So, Tarrant County Democratic Party, they asked, Tarrant County is the last red urban county in Texas and will flip Texas when Tarrant County turns blue. What type of resources would you invest in this county to turn Texas blue?
All right, let's go with Aaron first.
Spending time in these areas, empowering the SDCs that we've covered, getting with the county chairs. I think the biggest thing, and I think the most personal thing that we can do, there's low-hanging fruit in all these counties that we can all utilize, right? We can do drives. There are turkey drives that we can do. We can do car washes. Anything that gets the public involved with some big sign that says we're the Texas Democratic Party is going to get people's attention. Maybe do it for free. Maybe do it by donation. But the bottom line is, wherever we are in Texas, it doesn't matter if it's Tarrant County, it doesn't matter if it's the tomato soup of the Panhandle. The TDP chair needs to be involved and acknowledge every single candidate that is running a race in these elections. It doesn't matter if it's a local race or if it's a statewide race. We need to acknowledge, bring some light to those individuals through the Democratic Party, even nationally if need be, and spend time and resources being money in these communities.
Let's go with Chair Parker Mims. You muted.
I think Tarrant County is kind of flipping back and forth because I thought Beto might have won in 2018. I think when Deborah Peoples was chair. So it's tinkering, but it did flip back. Everything that we do, everything I do, is strategically done. I do not profess to be a strategist. I do not profess to do accounting, but I do know how to create a team of leaders, how to create a plan, and I do know how to make sure that we stay focused and execute it. I think it's important that we can't ignore any of our counties. We have urbans, we have rurals, we have suburban. There are different ways, and there may be different ways that we are going to approach them, but I can't say what I would invest, because what I will do is create a strategy as to how we're going to approach all of our counties. And some may be one way and some may be another, but that is how I lead. We will create a strategy and then we will execute it. So I can't really tell you what I would sit here and promise you for Tarrant County.
All right, Miss Patsy Woods Martin.
Yes, so I know that Tarrant County is very important, and turning it blue is critical. And I think, working strategically, listening to elected officials, to operatives, to our SDEC members, and working together with them to build a plan to engage, encourage the base. We would start with that, and we'd look to people like Nicole Collier, who is a state rep there, and Mark Veazey, who's a congressman. We'd listen, and then we would fund and implement a plan to actually get more voters out to vote and to turn it blue in a statewide race. We know it can be done.
Rabbi.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Tarrant County. I was married. My wife and I were married in 1987 at the Water Gardens. So I love Tarrant County, and I'm very unhappy with the fact that Tarrant County is not solidly blue. And I'm going to do something about that. One of my first inclinations is to make myself and an army of local activists, and activists are not necessarily party affiliated. They may just be people in the neighborhood that want to see better things done. I'm going to get with them. I'm going to find out what's going on in the neighborhoods in Fort Worth and Tarrant County, and I'm going to find out what they need. What do you folks need from the party as a whole to make Tarrant County Democrat? How are we going to do that? These people know. They work, they live in the neighborhoods, and they can tell me. I'd be tempted to bring a bunch of bands from Austin up and do a street concert around Billy Bob's or somewhere like that, and just draw a lot of attention. Put up big placards and signs saying Democrats stand for better wages. We stand for safer streets, whatever the local issues are that people want to focus on. That's one of the first things I'd do. It certainly is only the beginning, but I'd want to make a big splash, get some attention to the issues that we care about and the issues that Tarrant County needs to have focused on.
Okay, thank you. And Kendall.
First, thank you, Sabrina Robertson of the great Bowie County, my home county, for that awesome question. I appreciate it. Here's the thing on Tarrant County. All politics is local, guys. And so number one, we need to be working with Chairwoman Gayton on that, okay? The state party doesn't do anything without working through the county party. That's my opinion. You got to work with stakeholders on the ground. You don't get to bypass people. Number two, because you're working on that local piece, you need to figure out what your advantages are and your disadvantages are in different areas, because every area is going to be different. You on the ground is going to know that different than I am. But let me tell you what I do know, because I have spent quite a bit of time in Tarrant County, as most of the activists there know. So in Tarrant County, you have two unique elected officials who suck, and that is your county judge and your sheriff, okay? You have a lot of folks that are Republicans there, but those two are uniquely terrible, right? And I think that that's our gateway in. I think that we go and do candidate recruitment for strong, supported, trained, robust candidates who are able to work there. Once you start to put one nick in that armor, it's going to start to fall, right? So we've got to put real quality candidates on the ballot and support them and do it uniquely to what is for us to advance forward in your county. And I believe that those are the two spots in Tarrant. I'm here to work with you on it. Let's talk about it more.
Thank you. Justin or Tammy, do you have a question?
Yes. So, question from Nicole Mason Driver. The young voters were very discouraged this election. What can the party do to encourage our young voters? What can you do to really get more young voters out to vote and be engaged with the party?
Okay, I'm gonna give you a second to think. And Patsy Woods Martin, you will get this one first.
Okay, thank you.
1
Yeah,
minute.
we did lose our young voters that we were really hoping for in this last election. And again, I think it starts with listening, and I think it starts with a messenger that they can relate to. And so I would lift up a messenger, maybe, members of our youth caucus, young elected officials, charismatic leaders, to engage with our young voters before it's time to go cast a ballot, and listen and engage and encourage them to get going.
Thank you. Aaron.
Yes. Thank you for the question, Justin. And I was at a forum in Lubbock a while back ago. It was in the Senate race, and there was a gentleman, I don't recall his name. I hope it wasn't you, Kendall, but he was from the TDP. And he was giving the speech to a lot of people in this arena, right, about what we needed to do to get the vote out, specifically in that area, rural areas of Texas. And I looked around in the arena, and I seen somebody with a mask on. I seen somebody in a wheelchair. I mean, these were old, frail people. We can't depend on that, right? So there's a lot of ways that we can get involved. One of them being just go to your local YMCA, play some basketball, cultivate some relationships, right? Get into a youth program. I know for me, a lot of the people that are working with the organization that I work with know that I'm a Democrat. They know that I'm running for office. So immediately they want to talk to me about it, right? And so those are ways that we can cultivate relationships so that we can empower these young people and make them feel comfortable with being a Democrat. Because I think that's the biggest thing, making them feel comfortable with being a Democrat. So.
All right, thank you. Chair Parker Mims. Mute it.
See, I try to be nice and turn my mic off so you guys can't hear me. And I get too excited.
Okay.
Fundraising, engagement, voter registration, and get out the vote. Okay, those are the areas I think that we have to build a strategy around. So I will tell you now, I will come in and I will tear it down and rebuild it back up. Engagement. That is what we need to do to get our young voters. And that's what we need to do to everyone. I was on WFAA the night of the elections, and I was hearing that young voters after voting were increasingly voting for Republicans, and my mouth dropped because I couldn't understand it. But they have been messaged to far longer than for all year long. They've been messaged to on podcasts, they've been messaged to in the ways that they receive information. So we have to create a strategy to engage them the way that they receive information. They don't receive information the way that we do. Different generations, different groups. Millennials receive it differently. My son, my children, my daughter, they receive it differently. We have to engage them and meet them where they're at. But that includes creating a strategy.
Thank you. Mr. Scudder.
Hey, before you start my time, okay, I want to take a second and put some respect on the name of the person who asked this question. Nicole Mason Driver, Madam Mayor Nicole Mason Driver of Malakoff, Texas, who won a race that she was told not even to bother running in, and she kicked ass and took names. And I am so proud of her. And I thank you for asking her question, Justin. Now I'm starting my time. Justin, it makes so much sense that you, of all people, would ask this question because of all of your activism and work, serving on the DNC and representing the College Caucus and doing such great stuff on the ground. Thank you for asking it. I'm an under 40 person. I would be the only under 40 person that we have had as the chair of this party since 1956. Speaker Jim Lindsay was the only other one that had served there. And what that means is that I uniquely understand something that some other folks don't, and that's that the mainstream media is no longer the mainstream media. Okay, people that are under 40 do not consume their news there. And if we do not get serious about meeting them where they are at in their news consumption, we are done. And that does not mean that we are just asking the high school Dems and the college Dems for some advice every now and then. It means that they get seats at the table, because young people shouldn't have to sit around and wait their turn. They work their butts off and they earn seats at this table, and they should be able to sit there and advise our party and help us move forward. Okay. That youth strategy comes from all of the youth folks that we have in the SDC. We've built a mountain of them all coming together to figure out the best way to move forward. Different strategies for people in their 30s than people in their 20s, than people that are still teenagers. They all consume media different ways, and I'm here to meet them where they're at.
All right. Finally, Rabbi.
Yes, one of the things Ann Richards told me was something. This I'll never forget. This, she said, if you're not at the table, chances are you're on the menu. And she meant that, and that told me, you better be at the table. You better be part of the decision-making process, or somebody's going to be yanking your rights and jerking you around, and taking your money away from you and treating you like dirt. That's what's going to be happening. I'm 70 years old. I don't hide that, and I don't think it's a barrier. I'm a musician. I listen to music and I listen to other musicians, and I know a lot about what young folk like and what they don't like, at least in my neck of the woods. One of the things I want to do is communicate through music, communicate through podcasts. They're getting a steady diet of idiots like Joe Rogan. They're getting that kind of crap dumped in their laps. I'm going to end that. I'm going to counter that.
All right, thank you. So that would be the last question. So first, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is most important. And I encourage you to tune into all the other candidate forums that are going to go on. The next one I know about is on the 25th out in LBJ Ranch, run by the Texas Progressive Caucus. Please tune into it so you can hear more about these candidates, because like they all said, we have to be informed voters, right? We have to stop high school. We have to stop picking the person that we like as our friend and pick the person that's best for the job. Thank you. God bless you all, and good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate your help.
Thank you. Ron, did you stop the live feed?
Just a second, getting ready to.